Hey guys, I'm going to talk real briefly about character traits. Remember, character traits are traits that a character might show. It's who a character is on the inside, kind of like their personality. And you can always judge a person's personality based off what they might say or what the actions are that these characters are doing. Okay, so some character traits you might be familiar with are anxious, naughty, are they being stubborn or impatient? So different things like that. Also, sometimes you can even see character traits based off the illustrations. Kind of are they crying? Are they shedding tears? Are they sad because of that? So these are kind of ways to figure out a character's trait. Okay, most of character traits, though, you can really get a good idea based off how they are acting, what they might be saying and doing. So I want to go through a brief story and kind of talk about these characters with you. So one of the stories that I'm going to read is called Peredex Invents the Saw. And if you are following along, I'm going to read it and I'm going to kind of talk about the characters through this story. In the days of gods and goddesses, there lived an inventor named Daedalus. He was famous throughout Greece for his good ideas and his bad temper. So right then and there, the clue that lets me know how this character Daedalus is he has a bad temper. So he kind of isn't the nicest person in my mind already. So one day, Daedalus heard a knock on the workshop door. Who's interrupting my work? He growled. Growled is another clue. So he's kind of growling at someone. It's not very kind, is he? It's me, Uncle, said his 12-year-old nephew, Peredex. I want to be a great inventor too. Will you teach me? Daedalus' back hurt from chopping wood, and his shoulder ached from sweeping. He didn't really want to teach Peredex, but then he got an idea. If you all do all the chores, I'll let you watch me invent things, he said. So Peredex did the chores, cooked meals, and observed how Daedalus worked. So we have this other character named Peredex, okay? And it sounds like he's very determined. It doesn't say that in the text, but I know that he's doing all these chores, he's cooking all these meals, and he's observing. So he's determined to also become an inventor like his uncle. The boy had some clever ideas. So, going along with Peredex, he also has some clever ideas. So he's creative and clever. He wanted to make a smaller axe for cutting branches for firewood. Daedalus disagreed. Just leave the inventing to me, he always hissed. So yet again, there's him, kind of being stubborn. And he's being stubborn because he's not even listening to what his younger nephew's even telling him to do. So let's go back up here. And if you also look at the illustrations, you can kind of see a smile on Peredex's face and look at Daedalus. His eyebrows are turned down, kind of has this mean look on him. So that's also a way that I was talking about earlier by using the illustrations. So let's keep going. One afternoon, Peredex roasted a large fish for lunch. And after eating, Daedalus licked his fingers and smacked his lip. That was pretty good, Peredex, but I've eaten better, he said. It's kind of rude, I think. So there's another character trait. You think these things in your head just by how he's acting and what he's saying, but I've eaten better. Peredex sighed and started washing the dishes. In the process, he cut his finger on the jagged backbone of the fish. He held the backbone up and studied its sharp edges. I can imitate this design and make a fine tool for cutting wood, he thought. So his mind's going. He realized that, this accident that just happened to him might be a blessing. The next day, Peredex sawed all the firewood before Daedalus awoke. How did you finish your work so early? Daedalus snarled. It was easy with my new invention, said Peredex. He showed his uncle the saw. Daedalus was reluctant to praise his clever nephew. So what that means is that he, didn't want to go ahead and do it. He wasn't kind enough to say, "That's a great job. Wow, that's awesome. Great idea." He didn't want to give him all the praise. Instead, he says, "It should be my invention because you cooked that fish for me." He sniffed. Ooh, he's kind of rude. Okay, he's saying all these things. He's snarling. He's hissing. So Peredex to me is just a rude and mean person who's also stubborn. But then you have sorry, that's Daedalus, is rude, mean, stubborn. He's saying, doing all these things that are, helping me understand that's good character traits I can use to, kind of say how this character is acting. And then you have Paradix, who to me is a very clever and creative character. And at the end, he says, Paradix just smiled. He now realized that he was a great inventor too. So he didn't say anything mean back. He just smiled, took it all in, and you know what? He's a very, creative and clever child. And he's kind of nice. He's not even yelling anything back. So those are some character traits I use based off this story, and the character's actions helped me come up with these conclusions. So I hope this story helped you. And I hope you have a better understanding of character traits.